What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing the entirety of The Mandalorian Season 3. And right off the bat, I think I've just got to say that it's probably the worst season of live action TV I've seen just in a while. Not just of The Mandalorian, but just of television in general. I think the storytelling in this season was so weak and just poorly constructed, to the point where I don't think this season felt cohesive in the slightest. It felt like random disparate subplots, with characters feeling like an afterthought most of the time, and it all led to just a very jumbled experience. Up until episode 7, I don't think this season had a clue what it was doing. I think early on it really kind of squandered the opportunity to lay the groundwork for some really interesting character journeys. And by the end of the season, we'd spent so little time developing an overarching and emotional kind of journey that everything kind of fell flat. A lot of people have kind of drawn attention to the fact that Bo-Katan was really in the spotlight this season. And my problem isn't with that per se, it's more the fact that you can't forefront her character and then completely redact the main dynamic of the show, which is Grogu and Din Djarin. Not in the least because you've rushed their reunion back together in the Book of Boba Fett so that we don't have to join the Mandalorian without Grogu. If you were going to rush that reunion in another show and then ultimately not pay that dynamic much attention when we're brought back to the Mandalorian, what is the point? To somehow make Din Djarin and Grogu feel like side characters in their own show is very, very alarming, particularly when neither of them has anything interesting to do this season. Grogu gets about 5 minutes of development when he's learning to train with the Mandalorians and when he saves Din Djarin's life at the end. The whole conquest of retaking Mandalore fell very flat, just because the show really hasn't done anything to kind of flesh out the characters in these independent factions of Mandalorians. As epic visually as it was, like the end of episode 7 with the fight with, the Imperial kind of Beskar armed forces versus the Mandalorians and Paz Vizsla making his sacrifice, I really don't care about him as a character. His entire character development amounts to one quick sequence with his son to kind of lend some weight to his sacrifice. It's all very cheap and very lazy. I think while I love the passion that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have for Star Wars and their kind of showrunner vision for it, I don't think Jon Favreau as a writer has ever really achieved anything special with this show. I think he wrote most, if not all, the episodes of this season, and I think the writing is easily the worst it's been on this show in general. I felt like something was off from the very first episode of this season when Mandalorian revisits Navarro, and the first episode is essentially a subplot of him trying to rebuild the IG droid. And I remember just thinking, why does this subplot exist? We've spent the entirety of season 2 without this IG droid. Why now does he suddenly want to rebuild it? And there were so many kind of moments like that when we just ventured off into random territory to give screen time to just plot threads that did not need it. I was on board with episode 3. I know a lot of people hated it because it just completely refocused where the show was, but I kind of enjoyed it as an episode. But then the show as a season did nothing with it. Episode 6, when they go to that planet to find Axe Woves and the other Mandalorians, I was on board with it. Made sense narratively. Then they arrive and we spend the entirety of the episode on a side quest for Jack Black and Lizzo. I know this show kind of veers off quite a lot. Narratively, it's kind of become quite a staple part of the show where these two guys go off on random little quests and adventures. But when that comes at the expense of building a dramatic and emotionally compelling journey for your characters and your narrative over the course of 8 episodes, why bother? Because essentially 6 episodes of that ruined the 2 episodes of what was supposed to be a very thrilling and very engaging finale, which it was from a spectacle point of view. I thought the fights were really well choreographed, really well shot. I love seeing the Praetorian Guards, and I love seeing Grogu get to demonstrate his use of the Force at the end. But from an emotional stakes point of view, I couldn't have cared less. Moff Gideon's return was an absolute waste of Giancarlo Esposito. I've never found Moff Gideon particularly engrossing as a character because he's barely in it, and he's so one-dimensionally written all the time that, I don't care when he's on screen. I'm somewhat intimidated because Giancarlo Esposito is a fantastic actor, but as a character, he's never felt that important to the show. And the way he's brought back with only 2 episodes to make an impression before he's killed off, rather than giving him a season-long arc to build up his menace, was, I think, a mistake. There's just so many moments in this season of the show where I just thought it was so wasted or so rushed. The entire finale episode I thought was rushed. I thought the action was fantastic, but we never had any moments to kind of emotionally punctuate in between them. And it seems to be how to kind of get around so many things with just weird little narrative loopholes. Like Bo-Katan getting the Darksaber in episode 6. It's been an arc that was teased since season 2 of The Mandalorian, and it should have been a very empowering moment that kind of set this siege on fire for them retaking their home world. But it was literally Din Djarin going, oh, well, actually she saved me, so she, by right, has access to it. It should have felt like a victorious, triumphant moment for the show, but it just felt like they'd read the small print of the Mandalorian creed or the lore and thought, oh yes, narrative loophole there, let's go. It feels like the narrative kind of cheats itself out of very empowering moments, and it infuriates me. So yeah, I thought season 3 was an absolute travesty for Star Wars. And for The Mandalorian in general, like, I don't think it's a masterpiece, The Mandalorian. It never has been, but I've always been kind of engaged or excited by it and excited about what it could be. And season 3 was just shockingly poor. I've seen a lot of like YouTube comments from the optimists out there who say stuff like, you know, can't we just be grateful for what we did get? Like, we as viewers shouldn't have to lower our standards and our expectations because the writers, the directors aren't able to up their game and bring us a compelling vision. You know, we as viewers have to hold them to account so that they want to do better and they try to do better. So I don't like hating on TV or film. I don't like hating on Star Wars just because it's, you know, my childhood. But it's just bad storytelling. And when you now have shows in that universe like Andor that blow it out the water, you really have to kind of up your game. Especially 3 seasons into a show, you can't be struggling to justify your own existence or to find compelling narrative directions to take your characters on. This show has never felt like it's got an overarching storyline in mind, and that always feels like it suffers because of it. I want to see them growing as characters against a really compelling backdrop of narrative momentum, which is something this season just didn't give us. So if you have seen it, guys, do let me know what you guys think. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel. That's always a huge help for me. And in the meantime, we'll see you for the next vid.